Today on this episode of Adversity to Strength, I am joined by Tina Coleman, author of 50 Fabulous and Fuckable. Tina wrote her book after turning 50 when she was faced with her fear of becoming invisible, irrelevant, and feeling like her best years were behind her. Instead, that fear became the spark to create something powerful, a message that midlife can be the most liberating and vibrant chapter of all. Tina's story is one of resilience and reinvention. After a car accident ended her 20-year career as a massage therapist, she faced a wave after wave of loss, including her parents, stepdad, beloved dogs. Alongside financial struggles, early menopause and brain fog, there were times she wondered if she'd ever find her way back. But those breakdowns become her breakthroughs. Tina now has been sober for nearly 7 years, shed 90 pounds through natural practices like, you're going to have to, Ayurveda and yoga, and built a new life abroad, first in Mexico and now in Medellin, Colombia. Her journey is raw, real, and unapologetically inspiring, reminding us that we can rise from loss, reinvent ourselves, and claim a future filled with purpose, joy, and freedom. Tina, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. Great to finally meet you.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
No problem at all. Tell me where your journey starts for you. Where did it all begin?
Well, originally I'm from Des Moines, Iowa, which really surprises most people. Yeah, I was raised and grew up in Des Moines, Iowa, and I did not move from there until I was in my late 20s. And I left there to become a spiritual teacher. So, yeah, because I have been through a lot in my life, and I've always had this really strong inclination that I wanted to help other people. And I went
Yeah.
to church a lot growing up because I did have a pretty chaotic and unsafe childhood, and home was never a safe place for me. So, I went to church a lot, like 2 and 3 times a week, and then by myself. The church bus would come and pick me up, and then I did really well in school because those were kind of my 2 safe places. And I was, one of those kids that got bullied a lot in school, like from elementary school all the way up until high school, I got bullied. I was just like the kid that had cooties. I was short. I had the thick Coke bottom bottle glasses. I was chubby. Yeah, I came from a really poor family. So I did not fit in. I never felt like I fit in. And so, I really tried hard in school because I always saw education as a way out of poverty, as a way to better myself, to do something more
Yeah.
with my life, to go beyond where my family was. And I really have always tried to apply myself because my family kind of stays stuck and they're not very educated. And my mother she would always just be very trapped in the past. So that was one of the
Yeah.
reasons why I have really worked on myself and spent a lot of time, money, and energy working on myself and working through my traumas and working through the things that I'd had to overcome in my life, because I know that you don't have to stay stuck there. And she was just kind of the motivator for me to really want to change my life.
How old were you when you realized that your mum was kind of stuck in the past and that's not something you wanted to be like?
I think it was right before I became a teenager. So it was probably around
Early.
10 or 11. Yeah. It was a very unhealthy household. So I always, and I grew up thinking, and this is like the most bizarre thing, even as a child, I was like, I so don't fit in here. Like, I did not feel like I belonged in my family. I did not feel like I was born in there. In my mind, I was like, I have to be adopted. Like, they found me in a dumpster. They found me under a rock. Like,
Yeah.
there's no way I'm related to these people. And not that they're bad people by any means, but I'm just so incredibly different. Like, I just never fit. And it wasn't until I became a teenager, I was about 14, I was like, oh, I am related. I look so much like my mother. Like, I have a lot of the same facial features and mannerisms and things like that, and the body type. But I'm like, "Oh, I guess I'm related to you. I didn't really think I was." And it's just because I'm different, and I just never really felt like I fit in. So I went
Yeah.
through my whole childhood not feeling safe, not feeling like I fit in, not feeling like I fit in school, and then going to a Southern Baptist church a lot. It gave me a sense of security and safety, but then it's also all the dogmatic stuff, all the hellfire and brimstone and the fear, and then having to overcome that later in life. Like, oh my gosh, if I tell a lie, I'm going to go to hell. Things like that, which, I'm a very honest person anyway, because my moral compass is pretty straight in spite of all the stuff I've been through. But it's just really interesting because it's like I had to really work through all that. And I think, believing in something greater than yourself it's a godsend. Like, you really need to believe in something besides just you. whether that be religion, spirituality, whatever that is, that and connecting with your higher self, the universe, like whatever it is, because that is really what's going to help you move through those tough times. And there have been times in my life where I have lost that, and it was a very dark period in my life. So, yeah.
So how old were you when you left home then and kind of started? Because you knew that it wasn't a
Mhm.
place that you wanted to be then. So how old were you when you moved
I
and
was
left?
16. I was 16. I actually
Very
wanted
young. Wasn't it?
to move before then. I started working cleaning my neighbor's house when I was about 5, and I did odd jobs and babysat, and I got a real job when I was 14, and I actually wanted to leave when I was 14. I wanted to get emancipated. I knew I could get a work permit then. I knew I could get a license, a permit to drive a car. Like, I wanted to leave then. I wanted to run away. And I did not. I stayed because I knew that would break my mother's heart. So I stayed for 2 more years. And unfortunately, I got into a relationship that was really unhealthy. When you get into a relationship because you feel sorry for somebody, that is not a good idea.
Never good.
No, and I stayed in a very abusive relationship for 13 years because yeah, I grew up on Disney. I grew up on Disney movies. You know, on Disney movies, it's like, oh, if you love them, it's all going to work out. Oh, love is all you need. You know, we hear that. Love is all you need. The Beatles are great for that. The Disney flicks is like, you're going to have the happy ever after because, like, this is your person. You love them. So you need to stick it out. No matter what they do, no matter what they say, no matter what the circumstances are, you need to stay. And so I did. I stayed for 13 years, unfortunately, wasted my 20s in a very unhealthy relationship. And then when I became a spiritual teacher, I left. Yeah. And it was a same sex relationship because of all the abuse I endured as a child. I was terrified of men. And I was
Yeah.
terrified of men until I was about 30.
Right.
I know. See, I could told you this could be a free therapy session.
It's all right. I get that a lot. Don't worry. So what were you doing like in your 30s then? Because was that when you become a massage therapist then?
Yes, interestingly enough. So when I left Des Moines, Iowa, well, I got into it was basically a cult, to be honest, but it was a spiritual not for profit organization, is how they presented themselves. And it was a lot of esoteric work. So learning concentration, meditation, Kundalini healing, which is healing at a distance, and getting into the self awareness, self development era. It was a very dogmatic organization. Like you started off with doing 10 minutes of self-improvement a day. And by the time I left the group 7 years later, I was doing 3 to 4 hours of spiritual and mental disciplines every day. And so it's kind of like a little bit of brainwashing. However, that got me out of Iowa. It got me into a safe space. And then a month after I moved, I was in a car accident and I was hit by a
Yeah.
semi. Yeah, I was hit by a semi. It destroyed my car, a car I just bought. It was a little Eclipse, so it's one of those little sports cars.
Yeah.
I had just bought it. It was used. I wanted that car so bad. And I was driving from Columbia, Missouri to Kansas City, Missouri for a class for this organization. And I was hit from behind by a semi because he was speeding. It was kind of drizzly and rainy. And so I was extremely fortunate because through that accident, I literally walked away from it when I should not have. I really, that should have been it for me right there. Like that, I should not have walked away from that. But I did walk away from that. And I really believed I could heal myself. I'm like, I've been, I know meditation. I really believe that your body can heal itself. However, what I also realized is that I needed help. So I sought out chiropractic treatment. And then she also did massage and acupuncture. And that's how I got introduced to all the alternative therapies. And I had grown up in a household where it was like, oh, rub my back, rub my shoulders, walk on my back. I never thought of being a massage as a career. I
Yeah.
was going to be an accountant. I was going to make money. However, life is so interesting. It usually has other plans for us. What
Always.
we think is going to happen, it usually is completely different. Like no matter how good our plans are, it kind of goes a different direction. So the accident was a wake up call for me. I ended the relationship that I had been in, and I went to my treatments for chiropractic and acupuncture, and the amazing results. Like it helped me so incredibly much. So, and then I was with that organization teaching metaphysics for 7 years. And when I had done my internship at the college, which was an organic farm, and I'm not a country person. I'm a city girl. I'm not like I don't want to like get my hands dirty and play in the dirt. Like that's not me. But
Yeah.
that was for 14 months. I learned how to milk herd cows, milk cows, plant, harvest crops, do all that. Like we were busy from sunup to sundown, and then we still had about 3 or 4 hours of spiritual and mental discipline to do, you know, after all the other work was done. So yeah, when I moved to Tulsa to direct a school there, that's when I became a massage therapist because I was looking for a job that would be flexible with all the demands that they had. Doing teaching classes, directing the school, going to my own classes. It was very full. And so I needed something that would work around that schedule. And so there was a little hippie metaphysical shop at the end of the street from where I was living at the school. And the owner, he actually knew the person that started this organization. And I was walking by it one day and the girl was like, "Hey, how are you doing? What's going on?" I'm like, "Well, I'm looking for a job." And she's like, "We're hiring massage therapists." I'm like, "Really?" Like, I didn't think about that. I was literally filling out the application and the owner was like, he took one look at my hands and he's like, "You've got big hands, you're hired." So I've got like these giant hands. I was like, I don't know if I should be flattered or offended by that.
I
So
need the job, so I'll take it.
I know, and that's how I got into massage, and I loved it because I love helping people. It is hard work, I will say that, but I originally apprenticed as a massage therapist. So, and then later I had to go to school when I moved to Chicago because they had just changed their licensing law. So even though I'd been doing it for 5 years at that time, I had to pay like $14,000 to go to school to learn how to do something I
Cool.
already knew how to do.
Cool.
Yay! Yay for
Yeah.
licensures! Yay!
So
So yeah.
you've done a lot of traveling around. What would you say that is? Do you think that was just because of circumstances, or you love traveling, or do you think it was the childhood, or a combination?
Well, it has turned into because I love traveling, especially international traveling. Back then, when I was in the organization, they moved you around a lot. So they didn't want you to get comfortable in one spot. As soon as you started like making friends or outside acquaintances or wanting your own life, they would move you to a different school in a different state. So you had to start over again. So you actually became dependent on them and what being them as your support
Right.
system. Yeah. So I actually moved around a lot in the US because of that. So everything I owned fit into my car.
Right. How long were you? How long?
7 years. I was with them for
7
7 years.
years.
Mhm. So in my early 30s, they had moved me to Chicago. So I started off in Des Moines, Iowa, then Columbia, Missouri, then Windyville, Missouri, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Then I opened a branch in Lexington, Kentucky, and then they moved me to Chicago. And Chicago, like I was terrified to move to Chicago. It's like the huge city. I was terrified of
Yeah.
it. And I ended up loving it. I ended up loving Chicago. But that's where I left. I just started to see a lot of hypocrisy in the group. And I don't like
Yeah.
that. Like I like people to be upfront with me to know what's going on. And then I made a promise to myself that, if I was no longer being effective as a teacher and reaching the students, because they were adult students, that wanted self development and self awareness and spirituality, I was like, if I am no longer reaching my students, I don't want to do this. And that actually happened. One of my students was like, I just don't think that, I just don't believe what you're saying anymore. And I don't think that, you should be doing this. And I was like, okay, I'm done. So
When she said that to you, was that something you were already thinking? Were you surprised, or?
I was kind of surprised she said that because there's always underlying reasons when someone doesn't show up to a class. There's some resistance that they have to their learning and growth. However, I had been toying with the idea of leaving, and this organization, they kind of made you very dependent on them and the people in there. And you had this idea that like if you left, you were going to be struck down by lightning. Like if you left,
Sounds like
you were going to be dead. Yeah,
sounds like
like
some
yeah,
sort of cult.
a little bit. Yeah, yeah. It was. I mean, I definitely learned a lot because I got into the advanced group. Like I actually went through all the different levels very quickly because I love learning, I love changing, I love growth. And so I went through all the different levels very quickly in 7 years, and I was in the top echelon of the group. And that's when I started seeing more of the hypocrisy. And I was like, I don't know. I think it's about time. Like I was wanting to step back into becoming a layperson and being in the world. And it was terrifying, because it's like these are people I knew. At the end of every class, we do a circle of love and you look at the person, you tell them, I love you just because you are. And then when you decide to leave, nobody contacts you. Nobody wants anything to do with you. You were considered dead. And so it
Yeah.
was an ending of my life right there. Yeah. So, and it was very difficult. It was very, very hard for me
Yeah.
because go
Yeah.
through that.
How was it leaving that behind? You're glad to leave it behind, but you got these friends or whatever, and then suddenly you're on your own. You're driving to wherever you're driving to. How did you feel about that? Do you feel disappointed, let down?
It was
I
devastating. It
don't know.
was absolutely devastating because these are people I loved and trusted and believed everything that they told me. And I really thought they had my best interests at heart. So, but when you leave the organization, you were technically considered dead to them. However, I will say that was back then. That was back in like 2005, 2006. Since the advent of social media, like I am friends with some of those people on social media today. So that's really nice because it was really hard to leave everybody and to not be sure if it was the right decision, not sure what was going to happen. And unfortunately, because of my nature and my makeup, I have alcoholism on both sides of my family. And
Yeah.
so one of the ways that I cope with things is to drink because that's what my girlfriend taught me is to cope with hard times through drinking. And I was never a big drinker until I had some issues in my 20s with her. And then also, so when I left the group, I started drinking. And that has actually popped up in my life a couple of times. And
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's as a therapist, I mean, alcohol numbs the pain. It's what people
exactly.
do. I've never spoken to somebody that has genuinely said, I love drinking alcohol. It's always because of a reason behind it. Yeah.
Exactly. It's not like I was out going out partying and having a good time. It's
No.
like it was a way to deal with the emotional pain because growing up in such a chaotic household, there was no there there were explosive emotions all around me. So I grew up kind of keeping everything inside and not really processing things. So yeah, that's how I dealt with that. And it was not really a good idea, but I was able to move through it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's good that you're able to move through it. What was next for you then after you've drove away, moved on with your life? What's the next stop for you?
So I was in Chicago, and for some reason, I was like, I want to live in Dallas, Texas. Because when I was directing a school in Tulsa, I had this idea. And I think it's because there's so many people that moved down to Dallas from Tulsa for work. I was like, I want to live in Dallas. And I'd been down there like once or twice and didn't really love it. Like I loved Chicago, but Chicago is an expensive city. And I love the fact that it's so multicultural. Like every neighborhood has like a different flavor and different people, and it's amazing. But it also has bad weather. Like, and I think you can relate to this. Like, it's
Can
gloomy
indeed.
and cloudy for most of the year. We have like 3 months of good weather, and the winters are just brutal.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because people think, oh, it's the Windy City. It's because of the lake. It's like it's called the Windy City because of politicians. So, but it does get really, really cold during the winter. And I'm from Iowa, so I can handle it, but I hate the cold. I hate the cold.
Yeah.
And I just got to a point where I'm like, not gonna move. I'm gonna move to Dallas. Like, even though I wasn't really sure about it, and I went down for 2 trips, and I just didn't really like Dallas. I think I should have moved to Austin instead. But no, I love Chicago as a city. It's beautiful. It's amazing. It's wonderful. But worse weather, high taxes, parking tickets are ridiculous. And I was like, if I stay in Chicago, I'm either going to have a roommate till I'm 90, or I'm going to have to marry for the condo. You know, I just didn't see another option. Like, I was a massage therapist. I'm like, I don't see another option for any of this. Because I was pretty much at the height of my career. I was working in high-end spas. I was doing everything I, thought I could do to promote my career. I took Thai massage classes. And living in such a big city, it's hard to do out calls or things like that. And I even had my own office. When the market crashed in 2008, that's when I was just graduating with my massage degree or certification. And I can remember thinking like, oh my God, I'm going to be homeless. Like I just spent all this money to get back into doing massage, and I'm going to be homeless because massage is not something you need. It's a luxury for most people.
Actually, unfortunately,
Mhm.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was working full time. I had my own office. It was actually I realized I had 6 different jobs at that time. I was commuting by public transportation around Chicago. I was exhausted. Like my
Not
parasympathetic nervous
surprised.
system was shot. I worked every
Yeah.
day for over a year straight because I was trying to save money to move down to Dallas.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just like, it was crazy now that I look back on it. And I was just so desperate and I was so in fear because I knew people that had what they considered really good computer jobs like in IT and tech, and they were getting laid off at that time. People were losing
Yeah.
their homes, people were losing their jobs. Like it was a
Yeah.
hard time. It was scary, you know? And so I worked as much as I could to save a little bit of money. And I was like, fuck it, I'm moving to Dallas. Like, I don't know if this is the right decision. I feel called to do it. And I'm also the type of person, like, you can only talk about something for so long before you have to do it.
Yeah.
You know, there are some people that want to talk and talk and talk and talk
Oh,
about doing
yeah.
something and they never pull the trigger because they're
No.
scared.
Yeah.
I just got to the point like I either need to do this, you know, and like really decide do you're going to do this. There's a saying that Americans have, and it's very vulgar. It's
Go
very
for it.
vulgar.
Go for it.
Shit or get off the toilet, you know? You have to like you have to do it or don't do it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I was just like, okay, it's that time. So I ended up selling the things that I had in Chicago, putting everything into a van my mom let me use. I had not realized I had not been driving when I was in Chicago because I sold my car to a friend thinking I was going to get a better car, and then 2008 hit. And so I had not driven in a number of years. So I put everything into this van and drove down to Dallas. And I had an offer in on a condo. And it's funny because after I moved down there, 2 days before closing, the offer fell through because they did not process the paperwork correctly. And I was kind of like, interesting. So yeah, I actually became roommates with a friend of mine, and I had actually transferred my massage job because I specifically got a job at a high-end spa in Chicago with the idea of moving down to Dallas. For some reason,
Yeah.
I'm like, there's got to be a reason for this. Like, there's got to be a reason I want to move to Dallas. I don't really think there was, and I never really liked Dallas. And some people absolutely love it, but
Yeah.
it's like you eat, drink, and shop, and that's pretty much it. And like, unless you're taking your checkbook with you, you know, you're not stepping outside your door because there's not like a lot of walking areas or real nature areas or things like that. It's a very man-made modern city. And going from Chicago, which is a very walkable city, like you can be intrigued with, you know, just walking by the buildings and the architecture and the history and the culture. There's parks and, you know, you can get around in Chicago just walking. You cannot do that in Dallas. So it was a big culture shock for me. However, because I am incredibly stubborn and resourceful, I did end up buying a house in Dallas back in 2011 because I moved in 2010 and I bought the house in 2011. That year, day after Thanksgiving, I got the call that my stepfather was in ICU and he was not going to make it. And so I flew back to Des Moines for that. And because he was like the only person in my life that I felt like actually protected me growing up. There was this one moment he looked at me, he looked in my eyes. I think he was dating my mom when I was about seventh or eighth grade. And he was like, and we had never talked about anything that had happened to me growing up. And he was like, I will never hurt you. I will never let anything happen to you. He was the only person that really acknowledged the pain and the things I'd been through. And so, because of that, his passing, even though I hadn't seen him or talked to him in years, it hurt. It hurt
Yeah.
and it
Cool.
devastated me in a big way. And then 6 months later, during what we call Memorial Day weekend, which is the last weekend of May, my mother fell and went into a coma. And so we think it was a brain aneurysm. And so I had to fly back again for that. And me and my siblings, we made a unanimous decision to pull the plug because the doctors were like, she fell and if she wakes up from this, it will be a paraplegic. Like she's not going to come out of this in a good way. And every time they would try and take her off life support, she would bottom out and they were not able to run more tests to find out anything else that was going on. So we decided to take her off life support and she immediately just left. And she was a wonderful, caring, generous person, but she was not a happy person. She was very bitter and angry about things. And so we're like, if she's like paraplegic or quadriplegic, that's not going to make her a happy person, you know,
Yeah.
and she would have a miserable, miserable life if that were the case. So we did make a unanimous, very quick decision to be like, she's not going to want that life, you know,
Yeah.
and if she cannot exist without life support, there's no reason to have her. And so that was hard. and I'm sure you probably know this and have heard this from your clients, that when you lose your mother, like when you lose your parents, it hits you in a way that you just can't prepare yourself for. And even though me and my mother weren't close, I thought we had all the time in the world. Like I was like, okay, we got the next 20, 30 years to like get good. Because whenever I would try to talk to her, she would
That,
kind of block it. And it would always
yeah,
end up in an argument. Like I could call her and be like, hey, the sky is blue. No, it's not. It's purple. It would be like that. Like no matter what I would say to her. And I tried throughout the years. I even went back to Iowa to visit and to be the good daughter and do all those things. And we just never had a good relationship, no matter what I did. And so I'm like, well, as she gets older, we'll have that relationship. And so because she passed very suddenly at the age of 58. So yeah, at the age of 58, she passed very quickly, very suddenly. And it hit me so hard. It hit me extremely hard. And that kind of led to my kind of downward spiral because I did not realize how hard that would hit me. And she was one of those people that would be like, oh, I want to die. I don't want to be here anymore. She was that unhappy. And she was a wonderful person. So it was really sad for her to have that kind of attitude. But yeah, no, it hit me really hard. And that's when I started drinking really, really heavily to deal
yeah.
with everything.
It doesn't surprise me because there's a relationship that you always wanted that you never had, and that's gone for
Mhm.
good. It's still your mum, and I say it to clients: it's okay to have mixed emotions about your parents. You don't need to have they were great, they were bad. It's all right to not like them in one part and still love them in the other. That's normal. And also, you've got that, you're biologically connected, so you've got that connection, that bond, that sort of umbilical cord that you can't sever even if you wanted to. So when you lose parents, it is different to anything else, and there's no time scale for people to overcome that there as well. So there's not like, well, it should be over. No, definitely not. Then really, in an ideal world, you're having your bereavement therapy and then you're managing it as best as you can. And if you don't have that, it is even more difficult there, which, sounds like you found out.
Yeah, and I was alone. Like I didn't really have anybody. I had like two friends that I had, for years in Dallas, but I'm not close to my family. Like I'm very different from them. I didn't have any real support for that grief. And it was very surprising to me that it hit me so hard. So I coped with it through drinking.
Yeah.
Unfortunately I did. And it was a time in my life where I just did not care. I did not care about myself. I did not care about anything. And I was a functional alcoholic. Like I was very fortunate. Like I didn't lose my job. I didn't lose my house. I was able to function. But I knew that things were pretty bad because I started taking alcohol to work. And that's not a good idea when you're a massage therapist.
No, no.
You're supposed to be helping other people, not like drinking on the job. Yeah, and it was in 2018. So this is after the car accident. There, I had another car accident in 2017 that ended my massage career. Was
Yeah.
rear-ended by an 89-year-old lady at a stoplight in Dallas, Texas. And the kicker is she was due to go into assisted living the next week. And she was like 3 blocks from her house. And I was like, really? Seriously? I was just like, I can't believe this is happening. Yeah. So I ended up with 3 bulging discs in my neck and misdiagnoses. And I got headaches every day, and doing massage just made everything worse. The kicker to that, too, because, the universe has a sense of humor. I had actually booked my first international trip, and I was due to leave the following Saturday to go to Barcelona and to Italy.
Did you have insurance?
And no, of course not. Not for my trip. No, no, of course not. No, I had no health insurance. I had no health insurance. I had nothing. And it was like, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to go because I booked everything without,
Travel insurance.
non-refundable. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I booked everything non-refundable because I'm like, this is my first trip. I can't really afford to go. I don't know how I'm doing this.
And then
Because
that happened.
yeah. And when you lose a lot of people in your life, you realize how short life is, how things can change very quickly. And that combined with finding a journal that I had written like when I was in my 20s, saying that I wanted to go to Italy, Greece, and Egypt. Those were my three biggies. And it just hit me that year. It was in February. I was like, if I don't do this now, when am I going to do it? I'm turning 45. When am I going to do it if I don't do it now? So the combination of, the loss, the grief, and then I was like, I'm going to do this. Being a Virgo, we're pretty resourceful. And I realized I could fly from Dallas to New York and then fly out of New York to Europe. And it was really affordable. Because when you're a massage therapist, you do not, just like a therapist, you don't get paid if you're not working.
Yeah,
You don't. So not only do you pay for the trip, but you're paying to not work.
exactly. Yeah,
And I was like, I'm going to Italy. Like, I am not going to let this stop me. And technically, I probably should not have gone, but I did seek treatment abroad. Like, that was really important because I was in pain and it was difficult. But it's different when you put yourself in a place that is new, that's exciting, that you're just like, oh my God, I've been wanting to do this my whole life, or rather than being at home in bed, being miserable, being in pain, just being angry. Those are two very different scenarios. Luckily, a couple days before the actual trip, I felt like I was safe enough to travel. Like I was okay enough to travel. And so I did. I did. I put everything in one backpack and I went to Europe for 3 weeks.
how was that?
And
Great time.
it was amazing. It was amazing. It totally changed my life. Like it really lit me up in a way that things had not lit me up in years. And it just really gave me that passion for traveling internationally and meeting new people, seeing different cultures. And yeah, I'm from America. So, we don't have castles. We don't have things that are
Yeah,
thousands of years old. You guys are so lucky over on that side of the world. You're like, oh yeah, there's a castle. Like, oh
yeah,
yeah, I pass that every day. Like there's a castle. You know? you know? In America, we have shopping malls, we have McDonald's, we have Taco Bell.
yeah.
We don't have architecture that is thousands of years old. So it's one of the things that I am absolutely passionate about, and I love like historical architecture. So being able to go and see Barcelona and the beautiful architecture that's there, and then going to Italy and seeing, Rome at night is still one of my favorite things to experience. And it's like that trip changed my life and completely changed my life because then you have those memories. So even when you're having a bad day, there's something better out there.
Yeah, of
You know
course.
there's like a
Yes. Yeah.
whole big world out there that is different than what you're experiencing. Because when you're able to shift your reality and shift the way you're thinking and shift your attitude and your mindset into a better place, it can accelerate the healing. It can literally change your life. And
Yeah.
that's what that trip did for me. And that's why I'm so incredibly passionate about traveling. And I do talk about that in my book. And one of my goals is to inspire women to travel and live their best lives at, approaching 50, beyond 50, younger, older, like I don't care, just get out there and do it. It's
Yeah,
it's
I
so
mean,
important.
you're only as young as you are today. You got to make, and like you said, life is short, and you just never know. You just do not ever know, and you hear stories all the time. That reinforces it. You do have to live your best life. You try and make the most of it. Do the things that you love, around the people that you love, and travel as much as possible. Different
Ex-
scenes, different cultures, food, all of that. That's your fulfillment, not a big TV. Who cares? It's material things, but it's the being busy, doing things that you want to do, and traveling is high, especially on my list there as well. And with yourself, it certainly seems like you love traveling.
and you're so lucky. Okay, you're like you can hop on a plane and be like in Spain or Italy, or you could just like poof, there you are.
Yeah, so you've got. I mean, that's what I do. I do like long week city breaks. Like last year, I went to in the October. I went to Berlin, and then on the November, I went to Vienna. This year, I went to France. I've been in Poland. All these long weekends because they're all like sort of 2 to 3 hours flight. 2 to 3 hours.
Exactly. Exactly. That's amazing. Like you can literally go and be in a different country in just a couple of hours. Like I love that,
Yeah.
because it's a completely different culture, language, experience. Like it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I can easily, bearing in mind I work a lot, I can easily go to 4 countries in a year,
Mhm.
easily. And also, it's like if you go to certain countries, they're on a border next to another country, so you can spend the day in the next country. If you're in Germany, you can go to the Netherlands, or if you're in Switzerland, it borders like France, Germany, Italy. It's easy to get around there. You got like the Schengen agreement where you can go through different countries there as well. So yeah,
Exactly.
that's one of the benefits in Europe there as well.
It is. It